Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, today inshallah I'll be talking on the players in wealth management industry. So I'll be talking about different types of institutions that provide the wealth management service, and they are the major players in this industry. So here I'll be talking on private banks, which are one of the uh, most important player in the wealth management industry, followed by the investment banks, and then universal banks, and financial advisors, as well as family offices. So these are the uh, five institutions that are the major players in the wealth management industry, and I'll be discussing further on each of these topics. So first is private banks. Private banking is something as I have discussed also in the fundamental of Islamic wealth management. So it is private banking is something which is provided to high net worth individuals. It involves providing banking, investment, tax management, and other financial services to high net worth individuals. Unlike mass market retail banking, private banking focuses on providing more personalized financial services to its clients through banking personnel. So when retail banks provides different types of service to a lot of people, but the private banking, it gives special service to the high net worth individuals. Just for an example, when a high net worth needs to open an account, so he can just call, or if his private banker, and then the private banker will do it for him, rather than the high net worth individual. He goes to the bank and then he opens an account, or if he needs to apply for a credit. So this is how the private banking works, where the bank will give a special service. The private banker will take care of everything of the high net worth individuals. He will help to open an account, to transfer money, as well as other services. Also, it will help, the private banker will help him to um, do his investment planning. So the question is, who are eligible for private banking? Well, although the minimum amount for private banking eligibility varies, 1 million US dollar investable assets is a common benchmark requirement. So this is generally requirement among all the private bankers. However, what is the definition of high net worth individual, it differs, as in the case of Malaysia is not that much as of $1 million, is much lesser, but generally in the private banking industry, they will give this service those who have 1 million and above. And this asset means this investable assets. This 1 million is investable assets, means any assets that are either liquid or nearly liquid. This includes checking and saving accounts, money market accounts, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and retirement accounts. Or we can say that these are the assets which are, we can say, financial assets, means the money which is put in the financial system, either in bank or in capital market, or in money market. If someone has this has investment or saving more than 1 million, so he will be eligible to get this private banking. So how the private banking works? So the first is the eligibility. When the client fulfills the requirement, then uh, a high net worth individuals are assigned a private banker. So there will be a private banker for that high net worth individual. He will be assigned and he will take care of his affairs. The representative handles everything on behalf of his clients and helps the client achieve long-term financial goals. So that private banker will get the information from the client, his financial goal, he will analyze and he will suggest products and services, as well as the private banker will help the high net worth individuals to open account or to choose the correct investment platform and other financial services. So these are the services what the private banks they generally offer. Preferential rates and pricing on deposit accounts. While um, uh, if someone put a deposit in the retail bank, they get a small rate, usually a very minimum rate on the deposit, while for the in the private bankers they will give a preferential rates, higher rates. And also if a high net worth individuals he wants to get a financing like home financing or car financing, for example, and if the normal if the general rate is, let's say, 3% per annum, the interest rate or profit rate, for example, but the bank will maybe give a preferential rate, maybe only 2% to the high net worth individual. So they will get a preferential rate. And private banking service will include also financial planning. So that's covers the wealth management as well. So the private banker will take the information, the goal, and their risk appetite, and they will analyze what are the possible assets as well, and then they will suggest the platform, and then the private banker will invest on behalf of the client. Investment advice and wealth management. So with the financial planning, there will be investment advice with the what type of asset classes and as what type of asset classes he should choose based on his risk appetite and um, even in terms of the investment, it will the private banker will help as well. And estate planning, the faraid, and for the Muslims and for the non-Muslims is estate planning is which is covered by will, so the underwriting and other things. So sometimes one private banker he may not be expert in, let's say, estate planning, but he will coordinate with his team and then they will give the service. So estate planning and as well as the tax planning for that person, and even getting credits or loan let's say if the high net worth individual he needs to but he wants to buy a house. So what would be the best credit for which bank or where he can get financing and which is best for him? So the private banker also can suggest on that. Moving on, so the question comes how the private bankers they get their income. Private bankers they get their income from two things. First, from the commissions from the sales, so that the products that they sell, so they get the commission from that. So most of the products that they sell is their own products, means the private bank's own products, like the shares or some other or the financing. So the private banker get commission, or sometimes they take fees, also charge fees for private banking services, usually annual fees for the private banking services. They will charge an annual fee, or sometimes they will charge based on the amount invested. So if the high net worth individual he has 1 million, so they will charge maybe 1% of that. So there are different ways to charge the for this service. So basically two ways. One is through commission and another one through charging the fees. So what are the benefits of the private banking? What they provide is private banking is a one-to-one service. There's one private banker. He'll give a service to the high net worth individual. So there is a lot of privacy concern. So they will keep all the information private. The information will not be given to other sources. It will help the high net worth individuals in case where sometimes there are some high net worth individuals, they have issues related to paying tax. They may have some legal issues in terms of paying taxes or in terms of investment. So the private bank will protect their clients through keeping all the information private and confidential. And private banking will give discounted services because they will give a lot of products through one platform. So they will give preferential rates to the high net worth individuals. And private bankers, they also give high investment returns because they have uh, good investors and train investors. So they invest, they choose the best platform for investment. So usually they come with a very good return, sometimes even 30% return on behalf of the client. However, there are some disadvantages as well. Um, uh, One of the most important issue is the staff turnover. The financial institutions can change the private banker, so it may happen that the private banker, he changes his institution, he resigns and he join another company. And especially in finance, in banking sector, people there is a high turnover rate. People are coming and going, so it will be something negative, or it will be is a disadvantage for the clients or high net worth individuals, that because he has to deal with a new uh, private banker. So the new one, he will come, and then he may not understand the client better. If the private banker, if he has a long-term relationship with the client, so that is better. And another important thing in private banking is a disadvantage is the higher maintenance fees. Um, their fees is higher comparatively, and we know that this wealth management industry is so competitive, and it is fragmented. Therefore, there is a huge competition, and especially with the development of technology and robo advisors. So uh, other types of industry, they are cutting their costs using the uh, here. So if taking a higher fees is really a disadvantage for the private banking, and fewer investment products and services. So the final disadvantage or them is that the investment products are limited because the private bankers, they will mostly serve their own products. So when the client wants to invest, or he wants to keep your money in a fixed deposit whatsoever, so the private banker will suggest their own product, and they may not have all the products in the investment. They may not have the best sukuk, they may not have the best share. So that may reduce the options for the clients. So these are the world's top private bankers. So Bank of America and Morgan Stanley, UBS, Credit Suisse, JP Morgan, Citibank, and Goldman Sachs. So we can see these are the private banks, and some of them, they also have commercial banks. They are very famous, like JP Morgan, as well as the bank. So Bank of America is, if I'm not mistaken, is the is the number one in the world in terms of private banking. And then UBS is one thing is from Switzerland, and what is they are famous for is they can combine. They also provide the ethical investment as well. Credit Suisse is another non-American company as well. So, what are the industry challenges in private banking? First is the lead generation, as to getting the customer, the prospective customer. Usually, they in private banking, they still follow the traditional way of getting the new customer is through the word of mouth, or through people through the friends of the existing clients. And this private banking needs a lot of trust, and uh, the best way uh, to to know about a private banking is through someone who already taken their service. So mostly they rely on the word of mouth and their existing clients' satisfaction. And so that is a challenge, while maybe other industry players, they are using the new technology for getting their prospects, using the social media and others. Second challenge is the regulatory restriction. The After the financial crisis is in 2008, the regulatory restriction has increased, where it is difficult for the private banks, because in the 2008, because of the crisis, a lot of high net worth individuals, they also lost a lot of money, and they also lost the trust on the private banking. So therefore, there are a lot of restrictions, and those restrictions to make sure the private banks, they do not show negligence, or they work for the best interest of their clients. But at the same time, this restriction also some kind of create problem for their operation. Finally, in retaining the private banking professionals, as I just mentioned, that the private banks, the private bankers, they need to retain their private bankers. Usually, the clients, they like to have a long-term relationship with the one private banker. If there is always a change of employee, if a new one comes, so he has to again study and the new client, so it is a challenge as well. So now when we talk about private banking, how about the Islamic private banking? So after the financial crisis, before the credit crisis hit banks around the globe in 2008, Southeast Asia and the Middle East were booming with high and ultra high net worth individuals seeking to invest their wealth in domestic markets. This caused the eye of many Islamic banks, which began to turn their attention to private banking. So after the financial crisis, when people realized that Islamic banks, or Islamic banking system, they are more resilient, and they are stronger in terms of risk management, and also in terms of keeping the trust. So people, and at that time, Southeast Asia, like Malaysia and the Middle East, they used to have a lot of money, so they tried to think about the alternative private banking. So, same like the in the same way that commercial Islamic banks have their own Sharia committee, so Islamic private bankers could construct portfolios based on an individual client's ethics. So they may have also the Sharia committee, and then that Sharia committee can also judge the assets based on the client's ethics. Like ethical funds, Islamic private banks ensure that the companies in which they invest comply with Islamic law. So, same like ethical investment funds around the world, Islamic private banks also ensure that what types of the investment, as well as um, the saving accounts or what, and all the investment assets are in line with the Sharia, and they will make sure with the Sharia audit as well as the Sharia supervisors. And what's another important thing for Islamic private banking is they are required to pay zakat. This is a compulsory charity. It's 2.5%. Means Islamic private banking is also concerned of about the development of the society, the social responsibility. So that's actually quite close to sustainable development. So, what are the challenges of Islamic private banking? Is there is a real need for sophisticated asset management technology and expertise in Islamic banking arena. So, while Islamic private banking is still new, and they need to have a technology that can cater the Islamic assets. In the conventional private banks, they have the technology for conventional investments, but for Islamic private banking there are very few. Maybe there are some, like one or two, but we need to develop more technology to tools of how to screen the Sharia compliant assets, for example, and others. Similarly, also we need expertise in Islamic private banking, and increasingly competitive markets require substantial improvement in the quality of customer service. So, as I said, this wealth management industry is highly competitive. So, people are cutting their costs, and also at the same time, they are providing very good service. So, Islamic private banking needs to improve their quality of service, and at the same time, modern system must enable banks to considerably cut the cost of their operations. While other because of the development of the technology, many financial institutions, they are able to cut costs with a good service. So Islamic private banking also need to compete. So they need to also cut the costs. At the same time, they need to provide good quality of service. So in Malaysia, the private banking is still in the new. It is in the early stage. There are only a few domestic private banks operating in the country, primarily focusing on Islamic private banking. Domestic private banks in Malaysia are currently facing competition from international private banks. So in Malaysia, there are a lot of international private banks. The major banks like Maybanks and CIMB and others, they are also providing private banking, and mostly they are providing Islamic private banking, but there is a huge competition with the international private bankers. So here, um, so Islamic finance. So what is good thing is that Islamic finance and Islamic wealth management, they work hand in hand. So when the Islamic finance grows, so the wealth management also industry also grows, because um, the the assets that the wealth managers, okay, they will invest is in Islamic finance. So it's a together, is they must move hand in hand. Without the growth of Islamic finance, Islamic wealth management industry cannot grow at all, because they cannot find their asset platform to invest. With the development of Islamic finance in Malaysia, the wealth management industry are growing. So both continue to develop together apace. The latter buoyed by the increasing trust towards onshore rather than offshore across Asia. So they are the Islamic wealth management industry. They are preferring to invest inside Malaysia in the domestic market. So that is a good point, because Malaysia has enough, or it already gained confidence from the investors to choose their domestic products. So these are the leading private banks in Malaysia. We have Maybank uh, Private Banking, Alliance Bank Malaysia Private Banking. So these are the two, and then we can see a lot of foreign private banks like Citi Private Bank, UBS, which is a world-renowned one. Private bank has an branch. Okay, JP Morgan Private Bank, Al Rajhi, HSBC, OCBC Malaysia, Standard Chartered, which is one I think Standard Chartered Sadiq was one of the best Islamic private banker in lately. UOB Malaysia, Deutsche Bank, and then BNP Paribas. So they are already dominating the world. So here there is a huge competition, and all these like HSBC and Standard Chartered, they are also providing Islamic private banking services. Maybank, for example, or even CIMB, they also have private banking. So there is a huge competition. But the good thing is that the people are preferring Islamic private banking in Malaysia. So after the private banking comes the investment banks, where